278, but anyway, I heard every word you said. I'm gonna say it like this. 278, I heard every word you could have whispered, man. But I'm gonna say it anyway, man. You say you was barefooted the first time you keyed, and you ain't barefooted no more.
Hey, me Shane, Gemini Garage, and guess what I got today? Cooling fan kit. So we're going to check this thing out and put it on there, and then we're going to go through some the menu functions on this thing and learn a little bit more about this radio and cool it down a little bit. These radios with the heat sinks on the back, they really do benefit from having a cooling fan on there if you're going to talk much on them at all. So let's get to it. Okay, once again, let's check this thing out and see what we got going on here. Once again, you're probably going to have varying quality and design of these cooling fan kits. Some of them kind of actually have a magnetic thing that where the part of the fan kit just kind of sticks to the top of the lid here or on the side of the case and it blows air down. This particular fan kit here okay, so this is basically a dual fan kit. It's got an on-off switch right here, or maybe it's a high-low, and it basically kind of goes on here like this. You can sort of see how that goes on there. These plastic risers here, they basically screw to this fan kit, and then you take the top screw and the bottom screw out of the covers, put this in there, so it basically holds it on there like that. Now why there is 4 of these instead of just 2, I don't know. They appear to be all identical, so maybe for a different radio, or I'm not quite sure what you need the extra 2 for, but who knows, maybe we'll find out, right? So again, that's pretty much how this deal is laid out. 2 cooling fans, an on-off or a high. It's a 3-position switch, so it's probably a high-low switch, or it controls one fan or the other. And again, you put these risers on here and put it to the case. So let me grab a screwdriver here and see if we can screw these on here. Okay. All right. So there happen to be 4 screws. There's 4 more machine-like screws, and then there's 4 of these larger coarse screws. So I'm not sure. Apparently, okay, 2 of these take the larger. 2 of these things you use these smaller screws on, and then 2 of them you can use the larger, coarser screws on. I'm not quite sure, you know, what exactly is going on with that, but anyways, that's the way it is. Once again, who knows how you're going to get... I can't even remember, like I said, I don't even remember the place I got this from. It was just kind of like a no-name eBay place. I mean, obviously there was a name, but you know what I mean. Alright. These seem to be going together fairly well, so that's encouraging. One of these screws here is a little bit not in there, right? Once again, these things are all going to be very, very generic, and you know, you're going to have to probably put a little of your own ingenuity into getting them to fit right and work right. Okay, we got that side done. Once again, you might be able to kind of see the holes in these 2 standoffs are larger and meant for these larger pitched plastic screws or sheet metal type screws. as to where these ones use these smaller screws. So okay, one more screw to go, and then we can see how it looks like this is going to fit up to the radio here. Alright, we're getting there. Almost there. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to check these here just to make sure these are both the bigger ones. Okay. So once again, this is basically going to hardwire into something. I would probably, what I'm probably going to do is just, you know, put it into the original plug here. Probably just take these, I mean, you can just stuff these in there. The proper way would be to pop these things out and maybe solder these, you know, on there. That way it's kind of in the back there. And since you got a switch on here, that'd be perfectly fine to do. So that's probably what I'll end up doing, is popping these pins out and soldering that on there. First, I just kind of want to, okay, yeah, so it's kind of going to fit right about there when you take those case screws off. So kind of going to be something like that there. But before I do that, what I am going to do is I'm going to turn it off. We're going to unplug it. And I'm going to take these rails off because I do want to take the cover off. Take a look around in there and show you where that jumper is that you're supposed to switch over for if you want the 21 megahertz, 15 meters. Like I said, this one already had it in there. Alright. Okay. Also anxious to do the little showdown between this and the President Washington too, because these are both really popular radios. Probably the biggest deciding factor between this one and the Washington is probably going to be size, because this one is just enough smaller in a few dimensions that you might have more room for this one. So okay, here we go. Let's see what we got here. Not a lot going on in here, boy. I'll tell you what. It's pretty much just some capacitors, a voltage regulator, some drivers, and some finals. That's about all you can get at. Except, you do have the jumper right here. Let me pause it real quick, grab my glasses, and get back into it here. Okay, back real quick. I'm going to take off this microphone here and undo the speaker here so I can move the radio around a little better to kind of show you what's going on in here. Alright. Remove that cover there. Okay, so here we go. As you can see, not much going on in there. I am going to try and show you real quick if I can that jumper. It was on this side when I had the radio turned around, but let me see if I can get a nice close-up of this here. Let me see here. Yeah, it's that jumper right there. It was over on that first one and the second one. But if you want the 21 megahertz or the 15 meters, you pick that jumper up and move it over so that it's slid down on those two right there. And again, that's that one jumper right there. It's in the front of the radio there. Pretty much can't miss it. So there you go with that. And just for the heck of it real quick, since I've already got this cover off and I'm showing it off, I might as well just pop the bottom cover off too. Because I haven't had a chance to look in there, so may as well. So once again, these are not the most serviceable radios in the sense that you're not going to be probably doing much to them. You can, you know, replace the capacitors and the finals and all that stuff if you needed to, or if you knew how. Fortunately, I don't think these radios are known for having a lot of problems. They're pretty reliable, so while they may be a little bit disposable in some ways, I think they are pretty reliable. So, all right, let's see what we got over here. And this is over by where that jumper is that you move. Little spot right there. Yeah, we come over here. So once again, that's pretty much what we got going on there. All right. So with that, let's get our covers back on and get ready to put this fan kit on. All right, where are we here? Let's see. Okay. This cover here. These are just regular case screws, 4 for each lid, nothing fancy. Once again, you should always wait till all your screws are in before you snug them up. And also, we will be taking out these 2 rear screws again. I'm just putting them in there just to kind of align these covers. But we will be taking these rear ones out on the bottom cover. This one here and this one here on each side. One from the bottom cover and one from the top cover to, of course, slide this thing over. Okay, all our screws are in there. Once again, I'm just going to wait till all this is on there before I tighten them up. So. Alright, and we need to plug our speaker back in. And it just plugs in right back here. You almost need some tweezers or some hemostats to get to that thing. All right. Okay, just a couple more. Okay, so we got them all in there. They're all a little bit loose there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm kind of going to set this thing on here how it would be. So again, we're going to take these two screws out here and these ones over here. So let's just pop these out here and see what we got going on. Just go ahead and take all four of them out on each side here. I know I just put them in there, but you know. Okay, so this thing should just basically set over these things like that. Now the question are these screws long enough to go in there? Okay, and that, alright, those are long enough. They're going in there. I was going to say that is probably what those other screws are for. You're probably supposed to use these big screws here to screw these things onto there, and those smaller machine screws, because I'm guessing those machine screws are the same size as these case screws. Let's see. And I'll check that out later. Let me get back to the business of putting these things on here. There was no instructions with them, so I guess these screws will work. They're a little bit short. You know, you're only feeling like a turn or so getting on there. But they don't seem to be stripping the case out, so we shall see. Once again, a lot of these fan kits are just pretty much an afterthought, so you may have to do a little bit of engineering on it yourself. Okay, I just want to pop this one screw out here. I'm just curious. Well, you know, that might be a case screw size. I can't tell by looking at it, so I'm just going to pull one of these out and see if that's a case screw. Yep. So if you get one of these fan kits and your original screws are just too short, or you're uncomfortable with the way that it fits, then you use these longer machine screws that I screwed into here with. You could actually just use these here. So that still doesn't really explain why they gave you 4 more of these. I think these, I don't know. Yeah. I guess however you want to do it. It looks like maybe what happened was they originally drilled these holes in these smaller for these, and then they realized, no, these screws are for the case screws, so we got to make new ones of these and then put some extra screws in. So something like that occurred. I'm not quite sure what, but my original case screws seem to be working okay. For all that, you could probably take one of these things here and probably sand it down a little bit, you know, if your screw was just a little bit too short. But once again, the screws that I put in the back of here are actually supposed to replace your existing case screws on there. So, if you need them to, I guess. So, I'll just put this one back in there. Okay, now we're going to play this stupid game. Okay, so now this is what we've got here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire and I'm just kind of going to run it along here. I'm going to shorten it up a little bit, and I'm going to attach it to this and this plug here. So let me get my stuff together here, and I'll get after that. All right, I'm back, and so what I want to do is I want to have this wire running nicely along with all the rest of these here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this little situation here. When I say that, what I mean is I'm going to take this fuse off of here and this plug off of here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do here. I had a Sharpie laying around here. Okay, I'm going to label this, mark this black one here, because that's the negative there. And then I got this little screwdriver kit here. I'm just going to take these wires out of here. There's these little prongs that you push in here so that you can remove your wires here. There's just a little tab in there. You just push it down. It's a little tricky, but not too bad. Okay. That's why you want to mark your plug in there. So now we just got these two wires here. And this is a fuse holder here, so I'm going to open this up here, and then here we got a fuse like that, and then that's just this little thing that the fuse slides into. I'm honestly surprised this newer stuff is still using these old glass fuses instead of the newer blade fuses, but that's neither here nor there. So I don't really want to take this thing off of here, but I do want to get some shrink tubing over here. So I got a piece of shrink tubing over here. I think it'll be good. I can run these wires here through it. These are the fan wires, so let's run these through the shrink tubing here. And we'll start running this other negative wire up in there, and then we'll run this positive one in there. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to trim a little bit off of this tubing here. This is going to do what I want it to do, but I need to make it a little bit shorter. Alright, let's try it now. It's nice to try to take the extra time while you're doing this to do it nice and do it clean. Otherwise, you'll just, like I said, you'll end up taking these wires and jamming them up in there, and that's fine. I mean, it's okay as long as you're paying attention. Okay, so there's a couple ways we could do this. We could either just kind of have this running straight like that, or we could run this back like that. That leaves some wires kind of hanging, so probably just do it like that. I think. Good enough, I think. So let's just go ahead and shrink this on here. Probably a reason I should wait to shrink this, but I'll figure that out when I get to it, I guess, right? You can do a lot of great stuff with this shrink tubing. It really helps to improvise your wiring situations with all this kind of stuff, that's for sure. And this is the shrink tubing that's the adhesive line stuff. I tend to like this stuff more because it just, it stays where you put it. Okay. So with that, let's put our fuse holder back together here. And instead of shrink tubing, you could have also just put like some zip ties around it or something. That would be fine. Alright, now I don't need these wires anywhere near this long here. So I'm going to go get my wire cutters and cut those wires off and strip them, and I'll be back. And back. And these types of wire strippers are invaluable for having. There's absolutely nothing wrong with learning how to do it the old-fashioned way, which I highly suggest, but these are great when you're pressed for time or have a lot of stuff to do. So, alright, so we've got our wire up here to where it's about where we want it here lengthwise, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim these off here. Split them a little bit here. Alright. So, just take a little bit off of this one here. A little bit off of this one here. Guess I better plug in the soldering iron and get it ready to go. This is basically a USB, like a 45 watt power supply for like a laptop. And that's what powers this little Pine-Sil 64 or whatever. These things are awesome. Just absolutely awesome. Like, I'm plugging it in right now. I hit the button. It starts heating. And I mean, it's ready to go in like 30 seconds. Okay, let me grab my glasses here. So let's see, how do I want to do this here? I'm going to shorten these wires just a little bit more. Okay, that's probably about where I want that right there. So what I'm going to do... Okay. Just put a little dab of solder on here. Let's see. Alright, now we're going to do this one here. Alright, I gotta tack that on there a little bit better. Hold on here. Soldering's a lot like welding. You gotta be comfortable and in a good position, and you gotta... Okay, I think that's on there pretty good. Yeah, that's good. Shouldn't be a problem there. Then just unplug this thing, and I mean, it'll be cooled off in a couple of minutes, which is another nice thing about it. half the time you burn yourself on a soldering iron, it's when you're done with it, you know. Alright, so we got this wrapped onto here, we got this shrink wrapped onto here. I think all we need to do is just plug our little plugs in. Again, we've got our black one marked over here. Alright, hold on a second. Alright. It would help if I was trying to put it in the right way. Jeez Louise, what a moron and a half. Just like butter. Just like when you do something right, that's how it's supposed to be. I'm going to pull these tabs up on here just a little bit so they'll pop in there when you slide them back in there. Again, these things can be a little bit stiff. There we go. Alright, and then this stuff here, you can either put a zip tie on there. I mean, you could put another, I guess you could put another piece of heat shrink on there, huh? Guess I should probably do that, huh? Alright, let me grab another piece of heat shrink here. Hold on. Alright. So let's see, how long a piece should we get here? Maybe an inch. Okay. Put these over here like that. And we'll just go ahead and put these things back in there. Alright. Alright, we gotta push this little pin out just a little bit here. Once again, it takes time, and you gotta take your time if you want to try and do it right, you know. Might have to look at it 10 times like a dummy, but that's okay. Okay. Sometimes, like I said, they're a little bit stubborn going in there. Alright. We're good to go. Got our little bit of heat shrink tubing on here. Okay, sorry about that. The camera overheated. It has a tendency to overheat even though I'm inside, so I pretty much been running it till it overheats and then setting it in the refrigerator for a few minutes. So that's pretty much what's going on here at the Gemini garage, or Gemini kitchen. So I was, before I was rudely interrupted, I was taking this back off and putting some shrink wrap tubing over here just to kind of clean this up a little bit right here. I'm just going to heat this up a little bit. You want to be careful heating this shrink tubing up too much because this wire underneath here does not have the highest quality insulation, so you don't want to end up melting your wiring underneath here. So that's good enough. Okay, let me clean up my mess a little bit here. Alright, so here we go. We've got our fan kit installed, our wires shrink wrapped, so this should be ready to go. These wires underneath here coming out from the radio, you could route these up through here if you wanted, or have them come up through here, or pretty much route those however you want coming out of here. I just chose to do it like that because I most likely, like I said, I probably will be getting rid of this radio, and then someone else will probably have it. But even if I was going to keep it, I would end up probably putting it on a stand, and so that's how I would have had it route out of there. But once again, there you go. A reminder that the screws, the machine screws that I put in the backs of these here, actually are meant to go into the case here. If your case screws are too short, these seem to work okay, but if they're too short or you're worried about it, you want to use these screws here. And then these larger ones here, you can use to screw these risers onto the fans here. So. And again, no instructions with this, so you're just going to have to figure that stuff out on your own. And as I said before, you're probably going to have to fiddle around with these things a little bit to get them to fit right. Just kind of the way it is. So, okay, let me put my side rails back on here. See if we can do that. And then put some power on here and see what we got. Once again, you gotta love these little side rails, really great. Okay, I guess I can leave it turned around this way. Power cord here. Alright. Always a good idea just to make sure your red's going to your red and your black's going to your black after you've done all that, just for the heck of it. This tab in here is just bent just a little tiny bit. There we go. Okay, so I guess it doesn't really matter if I turn this on or not. This does not have any kind of internal cooling fan, temperature, or any of that kind of stuff. The Washington, of course, it's actually kind of made, designed for cooling fans. The heat sink's got the holes. Not only does it have the holes drilled, but it's just got the board inside to run the fans. This doesn't have any of that. It's just manual here with the switch. So let's flip the switch here and see what we got. Okay. They both seem to be moving. This switch seems to be a high and a low. Okay, so that seems to be high and that seems to be low. So there you go. That is your AnyTone Quad 6 Pro cooling fan install. And once again, there are several different manufacturers and styles of these fans. You may just want to come up with something on your own, or you may want to just buy one of these kits or buy something like this and make something. That's probably going to be your best bet there. It's decided to make some noise here. just had a piece of dirt stuck in there. So, okay, once again, got a couple extra of these, and these 4 screws here. Once again, the holes in these ones here seemed like they were a little bit larger, but anyway. So next up is going to be the, we're going to go through the menu, and we're going to go through more of the settings and kind of give an overview of how this thing works and its options, some of them anyway. So with that, there's your cooling fan to install. Shane, Gemini Garage. Stick with me for the next one.